Bay Bulldogs podcast, episode 5. We got some friends from the city here to explain the new arena and talk about Changerooms and stuff, everything that you guys have asked for. First, we're going to thank our sponsors. We're going to go with Canadore College. Great things happen here. Northscapes Landscaping and the Tresnack family. The Fox and the Fiddle Pub, located at 112 Spencer Avenue, North Bay. Join the men's NFC team after every home game at our home of the fifth quarter. Kenny U-Pull North Bay, your self-serve auto parts store located at 412 Burgess Road, North Bay. DeMarco Luceni Insurance Brokers, located at 693 Castle Street, North Bay. Call for your home, auto, commercial, and business needs, 705-474-2420, and ask for Coach Eric or Coach Krista. ANS Towing, located at 1345 Franklin Street, North Bay. Call 705-497-8565 for all your towing needs. So let's get into it real quick. We got these guys for a limited time, so I think we'll get our questions out there first. And Eric, I know you have them in front of you. I'll give you the lead on that. And Coach Mathon couldn't make it. He wanted to, and we're hoping Darlene the best in speedy recovery in her surgery she had today. So I'll let you take the ball on that. So Gord and Dave, you guys can answer these questions. There's only 7 of them. We'll go from there, and if you have anything else you want to elaborate on in regards to the change rooms and what's new and the timeline possibly of this kind of thing, and the kids are getting a little bit distressed changing in the parking lots. So we have some questions here. We'll go over that, and then we'll get into how the Bantam JV and SV did this weekend, and go from there. How does that sound, guys?
Sounds great. Let's do this.
Right on. Yeah.
So the first question that was posed to us by our families and parents and stuff was that they understood that there was a number of different footprint layouts and rink arrangements examined before settling on this one, and they just wanted to know if you could elaborate on the advantages of this design over the others.
Yeah, certainly. So I'd like to thank you guys for inviting us on today. It seems like very constructive questions you guys have, and we're happy to share the information. We're very proud of this design. We think we've done a great job, and we'd like to share some of the information and some of the logic behind the decisions that were made.
Sure.
So we're talking about the Trident footprint today, and I know I've gotten a lot of comments on that one, and a lot of questions.
Well, now's your chance to get it out.
And that's why we've come here today.
All right, man, let's hear it.
We had 2 footprints that were very seriously considered. One was the classic box, where you get the side-by-side rinks, and then we also had the Trident proposal. Now, the real challenge we had with the box, and this is a common challenge throughout Northern Ontario, is what's under the ground. So typically a building is designed, they will settle over time. Any construction will typically have some amount of settlement, and that's fine. All buildings can sink a little bit. The important thing is that the building doesn't sink at different rates in different areas. So when you do expect to have differential settlement, it's referred to, you've got to carefully design the building with a control joint to make sure that the one part of the building that settles quicker than the other doesn't crack the building. And that is doubly important in a hockey slab. So underneath the ice pads there, you have a lot of what's called brine piping. It's a saltwater solution that goes under the concrete, and that's designed to pull the heat out of the pad. If you get any differential settlement in a hockey slab, you have destroyed your hockey pad. It's done.
Okay.
So in order to avoid differential settlement on a playing surface, the Trident design actually came out as a shining star, because what we were able to do here is we've got a lot of bedrock very close to surface near Lakeshore Drive in the development area. And the part that really surprised me is that it essentially just dives down when you get to that other pad.
Which one? The top one, or
the top pad in this rendering here, and we actually end up almost 40 feet down to bedrock when you get to the change rooms where those are. So the settlement on that pad is going to be different than the settlement on this part of the building. So by creating that trident shape, we're able to have a good control joint between the community space and the other pad and the top pad here, to ensure that we don't crack one of our playing surfaces. And that was the most heavily weighted factor in that decision.
Okay, so that mitigated the idea of having the box over this?
So we could have still done the box if we had moved it away from essentially where that one pad is.
Okay.
We can move it into different parts of site, but then when we started to do the quantity surveys and cost analysis, the cost of rock removal actually made the box much more expensive than the Trident because of that.
Fair enough.
Okay, so one follow-up question on that. In this day and age, I'm a owner of a fully electric vehicle.
Okay, great.
So when they're marketing full electric vehicles, one of the things they'll say is, over X amount of time, you'll save X amount of dollars based on current fuel prices, because I don't have to do an oil change. Right?
Okay.
So when it comes to a shape like this, you end up with more peaks and valleys on the roof. You end up with more exterior walls. And I was just wondering, in regards to the carbon net zero, would you guys determine this would be more efficient and the savings over X amount of years would be worth not doing a box? Like, I understand you just said the box would be a little bit more expensive and
From a capital outlay perspective, yes.
outlay, but over X amount of time, in regards to heating and cooling of a building, would there be any significant savings with less exterior walls?
So that's a good question, and that's one of the things that jumped to my mind, because I'm an electrical engineer. That's my background. So when I look at the exterior building envelope, was what the exterior walls are referred to as, and the roof, I think you minimize that, you minimize heat transfer out of the building. And the mechanical engineer actually jumped in pretty quickly when I pointed that out, and he said, look guys, the level of insulation we have in building systems today makes it so that your energy losses are effectively insignificant when you're talking about the exterior building envelope. Your building energy losses are coming through air exchanges. So you need to look at, basically you're talking about a wind tunnel is an easy way to think about this. And in a wind tunnel, it doesn't really matter if you're 5 feet taller or not. It's all about what are you doing with the air going into the building and the air coming out of the building. Are you reclaiming that heat on the exhaust air or not? That's where a large majority of your losses are going to be in a building of this nature.
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
Can I just have one little quick follow-up? Was this the only location that was examined at Omichel for this building? The reason I asked that question is if we're talking about worried or talking about that top building settling quicker or more than the bottom half of the building, could it have been placed somewhere else where that settlement was going to be like more equal?
Yeah, so what you'd like to find is the same earth somewhere. So if we found a nice flat slab of rock, that would have been good to site it on. Now we did have a nice flat slab of rock if you go deep back into the bush that way, and you can see it on the Google Maps. You'll see these rock knobs sticking out of the trees. I considered that could be a decent location, but very quickly the cost to extend utilities out to that distance, and again the rock removals involved with that. We were getting into some species at risk land, we started to have some major impacts on both the environment, and there was some archaeological concerns the closer we get to the Lavaz River as well. So those kind of pushed us closer to the road and trying to get us out of the wetlands that are just off on this edge of the property.
Yeah, and I understand that. I was thinking, like, again, the north soccer field, that's
Yep.
right. So that, I'm not sure what's under there, but we're talking about, it's not flat under?
It isn't flat. It's
Just
like it
'cause
could be made flat.
I'm thinking the majority of or a lot of this cost is going to be to bring the services from the road.
That's a large part of the cost, but then you've got to extend the roadways in and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next question was, when this project was first contemplated, the budget set aside for it was approximately 25 million. Our members are hearing now that the budget is increased to 52 million, and they were just wondering if you could help our audience understand where the cost increases mainly stem from.
Certainly. So I joined the corporation in 2016, and at that time, the $25 million was already being batted around. So when we look at construction cost indexes, which is what we look to for inflation numbers in the construction industry.
Just gonna move this over to you.
Oh, thank you. So what we see, why don't I do it this way
There you go.
so I can look at you and answer the question. So what we see in those construction cost indices are, I look to Toronto and Ottawa because we're kind of in the middle of those a little bit. And we see that from 2017 to today, cost escalations are around 34 to 39%, depending on which of those two markets we're looking at. So that brings us all the way up to $34 million from 25. And then when we look at the initial $25 million budget, my understanding is that was to build a 2-pad arena, period. So a 2-pad arena, period, would be 5 change rooms per side, a very small lobby, and minimal practice pad seating. We're done. When I came on board, we were already talking about having a walking track, and the community resoundingly let us know that they didn't want to lose that community space that the West Ferris Arena provides. So the addition of those two, I'm going to ballpark $27.5 million in 2016 dollars through that program addition, and the cost, that's kind of how they escalated up to where we were prior to the Net Carbon Zero grant.
So the additional cost stems from that yellow area labeled number 11 there, in between the 2 pads and the track.
It would be 7, 11, and then the 2 additional change rooms per pad.
On either side.
Yeah, so we have 7 change rooms per pad currently, and a very basic minimum arena can survive on 5.
So the additional one, just sorry, my math.
And we're also at a net zero build now. We're only getting
Well,
net
I
zero.
said we got up to 34 or 35 with what I've explained so far.
Okay.
Yeah, the net zero build takes it home.
The net zero build adds an additional 20 million almost.
Pretty close.
Can you explain a little bit more of the net zero build?
So we're currently in the design for the net zero build. We don't know all the systems that are going to go in, but parts of the things we're looking at right now is, first of all, the electrical service. I can speak to that one really quick because I'm a Sparky. So in the city of North Bay, as soon as you go over a 1 MVA service, you're required to get a 44,000 volt service to your property. In Ontario, 44,000 volt services don't carry a neutral, and that means you need to build yourself a substation. So now instead of just having a green box that a cable goes into and out of, we have to build ourselves a full substation. So that's a pretty good adder. In addition to that, we don't have 44 kV on Lakeshore Drive. The closest point we have is at Booth and Birches. So now we've got, actually I'm looking at the station right out your window. So from that station we need to extend 14 pole lines to the property, and that's going to be a project cost as well, in addition to the substation. That's just the electrical system, and that's just getting us to before the equipment in the building. Within the building we need to double the size of the main incoming service gear, of course, from 1200 to 2400 amps. So those are a lot of the electrical costs. Now on the mechanical side, we start looking at ground source heat pumps, air source heat pumps, and supplementary boilers for those systems. That's a lot of the cost from the mechanical perspective, and then architecturally we're looking at additional insulation on the entire building envelope, and there are some additional footprints that have to grow a little bit to accommodate these new systems.
So you didn't say it, but you're kind of saying it. Is this going to be completely geothermal?
We don't know yet. So currently we're doing an analysis, and what we're hearing very preliminarily, I mean, we had this meeting 2 days ago, is that the thermal balance on a building of this nature isn't great. And what you don't want to do is build a building that's going to sink a ton of heat into the ground that you'll never use. And so we're faced, and it's a condition where we're either going to be generating too much cold or hot. And I believe it's hot because of all the heat we pull out of the pads. And it just doesn't make sense to try and thermally store all of that.
So if you're gonna be bringing it up 20 some million with the net zero, how are they planning to do that, to be net zero? Because I've lived in Ontario a long time.
Yep.
And I really love seeing, my whole life. For a little bit I was out west, but I love seeing the hydroelectric dams. I think that's a renewable resources that many countries wish they had access to.
100%.
Right, especially somebody like Germany right now. They don't have access to that. We have a copious amount of it, right?
Absolutely.
That's underutilized.
Yep.
We have lots of windmill and solar that I feel we don't require because we have such an amazing hydroelectric system which isn't being, like I said, underutilized, right? We look at places like the Holden Dam and stuff like that, Mattawa, where they use maybe one turbine once in a while, and water's still always flowing through it, right? We're not capturing that. So
I'd love to get one of those guys here to back up some of the stuff because I haven't heard that.
Okay.
It's that underutilized. I certainly know they don't have all the turbines running all the time.
Yeah, significantly underutilized, and that's a lot of it has to do with the Ontario government. You know, we got to use nuclear first, and then we can use whatever else after, right? So there's the way that that's structured is different. But in regards to net zero, how is that going to be a net zero for that cost we're not going to use geothermal, right? I'm trying to figure out what is the net zero aspect of it. Like, is it going to be extremely insulated with something that I've never heard of, or I'm
not following.
So you're going to be carbon net zero, right?
So
you're
so
trying
we're
to
going to
save
build
on
this
energy.
building to, it's called, I believe, the CIGBC V2 standard for
Okay.
a net carbon zero build.
Right?
Yep.
So what in the 20 million do you feel is so expensive to make it net zero? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, again, we're in the middle of designing these systems.
Okay.
Like for a question of that nature, I might need to bring the actual design professionals in.
Okay.
Like I'm kind of managing them.
Yep.
I don't have the insight that they might have.
Yeah.
But when we told them we want to be the CIGBC V2
Mhm.
and we're going to commission, test, and prove and get certified to that standard, they told us, along with the cost estimators, that this is the increase you're looking at in your budget. These are the systems we're going to have to explore, and we're currently in that exploration right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the number then can't be assured if we don't know where we're at with that, right? So
They have a pretty high confidence in it,
Okay.
but to really dial the estimate in and say it's going to be 52 or 48 or whatever it might tender at.
Because you got to remember that a lot of people are going to watch you say this that are going to be watching the channel. They have no idea what that means in the difference of a build to bring it to carbon net zero.
Right.
Because there's a lot entailed, right?
Certainly.
But what they do know is how many zeros are coming after that too, right?
We won't add a zero, I promise you that.
Okay.
We will not hit a $500 million.
I'm not saying add one. I'm saying they do know. They do know after the two how many zeros are in 20 million.
That's right.
They
We will
don't-
not add a zero, I promise
Right,
that.
But they don't know what's entailed in that 20 million.
Right.
Because that's a constituent's money, right? When they see somebody like Sault Ste. Marie do a $20 million build for 4 ice pads, they get
Hold
a
on.
little nervous.
I'm going to
Okay.
contest that number.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I'm just getting the
They had
questions
an
out
existing community center,
there.
and they're adding on to that, and I don't think they came in at 20 million.
30.
Yeah, 30.
Their building permit was 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
that
they probably would have had some engineering design costs on top.
Well, those are of course excluded. Yeah.
Okay, because that's what the people watching are going to be seeing, right? Because that's floating around on the Sioux today. I know the Bay today was showing it, right? So that's a lot of what the people in town are going to be seeing, right?
Certainly. And then
And-
if you thought that they were going to build a full this for 20 million, you'd feel pretty gypped. But that's just not the case.
Okay, I'll let you get to your next question. I apologize.
Just on funding too, guys. Remember, there's it's all taxpayer money, but there is a $26 million
Yes,
federal
grant.
grant that's coming. So that
Yep.
puts the municipal share, back down. In,
Surprisingly,
yeah.
to the
How much is the
2016
federal
figure of
amount?
26 million.
It's 26 million.
26 million? Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure that'll come up again.
It's all about the money.
We might need
Fair enough.
we might
Yeah.
need the finance department in here.
Yeah.
Gord.
Better call them.
So Josh did ask what it meant to be net zero design, but do you have an estimate of what the annual electricity costs on this building will be?
So right now we don't. Again, we're trying to nail these systems down. Certainly when you decarbonate a building, your electricity costs are going to go up because we're looking to remove some of the natural gas load. So if you get rid of a natural gas boiler and you replace that with an air source heat pump, you've got to run the air source heat pump with electrics. So certainly it'll be a higher cost. We don't know where it is yet. We have kind of a range, but we're trying to dial those systems in currently.
I got you now. So when I heard you talking about the heat pump and the cool pump, this is going to be an electric heating system, more or less, right?
It's
So that's what I got in my car. I love it. You defrost in 2 seconds, right? It's a lot more. It's rapid heat. It's rapid cooling.
so we're looking at this building will be capable of being fully electric one day. We're just not sure that today's the right day for it because, quite frankly, the cost of electric heat is significantly higher than
It is.
natural gas.
Yeah.
And that's something we do need to take into consideration. I mean, that's the capital cost to build a net zero are very high, and that's where these grants come in and help us out. But we also have to consider operational costs moving forward. So we look at, do we do a natural gas fired boiler system and pay for carbon offsets? That would meet the CIGB CV2 standard. So those are the considerations we're doing right now, and that's why we haven't really nailed down our operating costs yet.
Okay. And then there was some questions about they were wanting to see the drawings for the dressing rooms that were going to be used for football, because it's quite easy for anybody who's not involved in football to say, yeah, there's 2 dressing rooms for footballs, and it doesn't really serve the need for football dressing rooms. And so what they're saying is it's important that there's 4 dressing rooms made up of 2 sets of 2 interconnected dressing rooms. That can each hold 25 players.
Okay.
So the question I guess they're asking is, will the dressing rooms be sufficient to hold up to 50 football players in each one? A little bit different than hockey, right? Because hockey,
of course,
you don't need as many people. We dress 50 kids.
56.
But yeah, 56 on our roster.
56?
On the
56 on
Bantam
the
roster.
I thought your leagues only had 45. And this is personal. This has nothing to do with the project. I just thought you guys were leagues of 45.
Upwards of 60.
We don't make cuts at the Bulldogs. So if 56 kids show up, we dress 56 kids and we find a way to play them. But when you have the team, so the Bantam Bulldogs playing with 56 kids on their roster, and York comes up, they have 40 kids on their roster. That's 2 change rooms. Well, we're not done by the time the next 2 teams are in looking for change rooms to get changed to get ready for their game.
Of course.
So I guess what we're trying to understand is there going to be enough space for basically 4 teams to be changing?
Yes.
While ball hockey's going on.
Yeah.
We can play actual ice hockey at the same time you guys are all playing your games as well.
So
we can lose 8 change rooms.
Okay.
And those change rooms can come out of service, and it's not going to be a full hockey tournament and a full football tournament, but we'll still be able to do single team practices on the ice pads with the 3 remaining change rooms per pad, and there will be a total of 8 hockey change rooms or 4 football change rooms available.
Okay, so there is a total of 11 change rooms in that design.
There is a total of 14.
14 change rooms.
Yes.
Okay. And some of those are interconnected?
So we did a community engagement session because, we come up with these designs and then we want to hear back from the community and say, is this kind of on target? Mm-hmm. And you guys were well represented at one of those meetings. Mark showed up and he let us know in no uncertain terms what was required.
He's passionate.
He was very
passionate. That's the word I'll use.
And we heard him. So we do have what's referred to as the interconnected rooms.
Can you show us? Can you actually point to them?
So
I don't want you to be Vanna White. I just want
to. So as you can see, these 2 change rooms here.
Okay.
Let me just grab the
Yeah,
mic.
let's move that over.
Yeah.
So we've got these 2 change rooms here. Have a roll-up door between them.
Great.
These 2 change rooms, roll-up door between them. Now, it wasn't just that you guys needed room to change. We didn't think you guys really wanted to walk through a hockey rink and then fight through the lobby crowds, right? So one thing we were very specific to do in the design is make sure you had an exterior connection so that you guys can access from the fields in right to the change rooms and from the change rooms right out to the fields. The other thing we do in sports design is we typically don't want the opposing team side by side in change rooms, and that's why we also have the mirrored design on this side of the building. So if you're having a tournament, you could have the Bulldogs and York over here, and you guys both come out of your doors and head out to the fields, and the other teams can be changing at the time. And those change rooms are suitably sized to house 50 players each.
Okay.
Fantastic. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an easy one. I like that question.
Now, the next question, I guess, is this the process done? Like, are we close to shovels in the ground, or is it basically this is decided on, we're getting to that point, or can the next council revisit this and decide that this is not?
So the process is done. Other than the net carbon zero build modifications that are required, we're done. So the functional program set, the change rooms are set, the community spaces are set, the pads are set, the seating is all set. What we're doing now is we're bringing it to that final net carbon zero design, so that'll meet the grant requirements, and that'll give us access to that $26 million grant. We're going to tender the project, and we have a set of pre-qualified bidders already ready to go, and they're going to give us pricing on this project. We'll be bringing that pricing to council we're expecting January, and the new council will be voting on whether to award this and receive that grant money, or whether they would not like to proceed with this project.
Okay. And just so I understand, we qualify for the federal grant because of the net zero build?
That's correct.
So if the net
grant
zero
is
build
for the
was
net-
not there, if we didn't meet those guidelines, then the grant money wouldn't be the 26 million, it would be zero.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carbon zero it is. That's my vote. That's my vote.
That's how I felt about it.
So we're clear then. Okay, so we're gonna have a carbon net zero. We're gonna have a federal grant come in, right? Just for the people that are multi-sport athletes,
Mhm.
this question is gonna come up, and if Jason was here, he would be asking this as a follow-up to that. If we're going to have 2 new arenas, and in the media they've been talking about how we need to replace 3, how is that going to have any growth in hockey? And the only reason I ask that is because is there plans to refurbish Palangio or West Ferris, or just build 2 new arenas, demo 3, and then be left with 1 less rink?
I've not heard plans beyond this one currently.
Okay.
West Ferris is going to be very difficult, and we've done a number of presentations explaining a lot of the issues we have with that building. The reality is you refurbish that building and you end up with a 1967 building.
Yep.
It doesn't meet any of our modern accessible requirements. It doesn't meet any of our modern standards. It doesn't really fit our modern programming.
Mhm.
So it, a lot of money needed to bring that back up to a 50 to 60-year-old design. Pete Palangio itself, we all know about the underground change rooms. It's really challenging from an accessibility perspective there. They're undersized. Currently, the only ice pad in North Bay that is officially sized is Memorial Gardens. And I've heard from our operations that that's made it exceedingly difficult to have competitive level hockey tournaments come to town. They have no interest in playing on undersized pads.
Yeah.
So this goes a long way. Now that we have 3 official sized ice pads, they're telling us they can start bringing in these higher level competitive tournaments.
Mhm.
So they're very excited about that. But moving forward, if they proceed with this project, we would have the gardens, the 2 ice pads in this community center, and then Pete Palangio. Pete Palangio, from my perspective, doesn't have critical issues. It has challenges, accessibility being one, the undersized nature of the pads being another. I'm not sure how we overcome that in the future, but I haven't heard any plans yet.
Undersized pads, it's still great for Timbits, right? You're still gonna end up with if we can keep the Palangio rinks, then you do end up with an extra rink in town, right?
Sorry, an extra rink?
Well,
do you mean?
An extra ice pad.
West Ferris, we have to decommission
Right.
that.
So
That's gotta
so
go.
you remove 1, right? You're gonna add 2.
Yep.
Right. So you end up with 1 more.
At the end of the day, we
Yes.
have 5 ice pads in town.
Right.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Right.
Yep.
So that's all that I've heard. Jason also coaches hockey.
Yep.
And
It was a concern
It
that
was
we
a
were going
concern.
to have a reduction in ice pads and ice surfaces.
So the
Yeah.
MRF study, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the MRF, the multi-use recreational study.
Okay.
That study was originally conducted in 2012, and what that told us at the time was we needed a minimum of, I think it was 4.3 ice pads. And that is prior to a number of varsity teams coming online and prior to the OHL returning to the city. With that return, a new MRF study was conducted. And, do you remember the number that came out of that one, Gord? Off the top of my head, I don't. It was right around 5, though. It said we're going to need around 5 ice pads. So the latest studies told us this city needs 5 pads. So we've heard that. We have the study. We've been told we need 5 pads.
That's good. That's great. So then it'll be West Ferris decommissioned. We're keeping Palangio. We're gonna have 2 more here. There's gonna be more ice than there was before.
Spot
That's
on.
Positive. Very positive. All right. So that's for Jay. I hope you see this. You're supposed to be here.
Yeah,
Hold
the
on
liquid.
it.
Yeah. I'm not gonna forget about it. I know you had that question. That being said, so the other follow-up I have is we have an election coming up, right? How does that throw a fork in the spokes here? Because is the next council allowed to completely restart this whole thing and waste money? Because like Eric said, we want to see a shovel in the ground, and a lot of the community partners, not just us, soccer, baseball, hockey, everybody in the community that can benefit from something like this wants to see a shovel in the ground yesterday, right? I'm sure you guys do too. So if a new council's elected, are they allowed to kibosh this and say, let's start over?
It's the will of council.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
They always have the power to decide.
Again, we go in front of the new council and we're going to let them know this is the bid we received to build this. They know what the design is, they'll know what the cost is, and it's their vote to say we want to proceed with this or not. If they vote not to, then the path's very unclear.
Yeah. So we're not going to have a shovel in the ground before they come on board, are we?
So if everything
No,
goes,
certainly we cannot.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
They need to approve the award of the tender.
if everything goes to schedule and the new council approves this in January, like planning, what are we talking for?
We'll be in the ground in the spring.
in the ground in the spring, and then build time.
Roughly. Just
18
Yeah.
to
spitball.
24 months typically.
So
We'll
we'll
have
be
to talk to the
20,
contractors.
2025. The summer of 2025 is what we're looking at.
We'd hope to be before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's still exciting. If things progress. you know.
Absolutely.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
That's right. We're going full steam at the moment, but again, that next checkpoint is in
Yep.
front of council
Okay.
in January.
Okay.
Right on.
Now, when the call for the designs for this build was made, was there a clear direction to the designers as to what the city was looking for? And if so, do you know what that direction from city council was?
So the direction, it kind of came from that special arenas committee. They decided the number of pads, the walking track was to be included, the community space. And then what we did as staff is we developed what's called a functional program. And a functional program describes what a building needs to kind of accommodate, what kind of programs are going to be within it. So the number and nature of change rooms, the types of activities that are expected to be occurring within the spaces. And that functional program got included in the request for proposals. And we told them we want to see, schematic designs, we want to see some detailed designs, we want these number of check-ins, these number of meetings. And that is how we procured the designers for this.
Okay.
There was a lot of community input though as well. I mean, that was it really was community driven. I mean, I think the MRF study demonstrated the need for additional ice, so that's where they started. The walking track, that was something else that came from user groups. So all of those critical components were community driven.
Yeah, sorry, my question or my answers are very engineering centric.
Mm-hmm.
That special arenas committee did a lot of work with the community to find out what the community wants.
And was there ever any thought given to having some private partners brought in for the cost, like for help with the cost?
I believe there was some exploration of P3 nature projects, and this type of project fell a little bit below the bar in terms of what a P3 partnership was looking for. They can't extract a lot of money out of this type of project until they hit 3 to 4 pads, at which point they can start extracting a fair bit of money as a corporation out of the operations of that.
Okay.
But one thing we did hear from those corporations was the hourly rates they wanted to charge would have more than doubled our ice costs to our user groups. And that certainly gave everybody a little time to pause.
And are the ice costs, when this is done, in line with what the ice costs now are at Palangio or West Ferris? I'm assuming it would be more, but like, are we? I know when we rent Rolly Fisher for our practices, because the cost between Rolly Fisher and Omashal is double the cost. So we play our games there, but we do all our practices at Rolly Fisher. Is the hockey group's going to be like? Do you know?
I imagine that they'll probably do a user fee review for this.
Yeah.
To look at what the user fee should be. They did that with Omashal, right?
Okay.
So
that hasn't been part of the. It's getting
We're
it
not-
built first.
we're not there yet.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring this back. Keep in mind, Gord, that the user fees with Omashal
they were contentious. Yeah.
without
You know they have them up.
without change rooms.
Yeah. No.
They're the same price as 39 clubs in
Yeah.
Ontario that have change rooms in the OSFL.
User fees are always very exciting to talk about. Yes.
I gotta
Exciting.
point certain things out like that because that sometimes it's just a turf field with a scoreboard, but a turf field with a scoreboard in accessories is a little bit different.
I was reporter covering it at that time. Yeah.
There you go.
Surprised you came. I appreciate it.
I
Go.
was at every meeting. Yeah.
So,
Then our last question sounds like you've answered a lot of it with the cost efficiency, but the question kind of has a little bit both, and is also a follow-up with the last question, and just wondering if the main focus of this build should have been to keep the tax burden as low as possible for the taxpayer, while at the same time making the building the most cost efficient within those parameters.
So that kind of is okay. When we were doing this design, we, as a design team, we heard, this is your budget envelope. You've got $25 million for this build. Go. So we went to the table and kind of started to come up with some designs that could fall underneath that budget envelope. And what happens is you lose what the community wants out of this building at that price tag. So what happens is, yeah, sure, I can build this under 25 million. We'll get rid of the walking track. We'll go down to 5 change rooms per pad. Forget, multi-sport change rooms. We'll get rid of the community room and get rid of a lot of the association spaces. And there I can deliver your building. And that's not what the community said they wanted from us. So then we go back and we say, okay, they say they absolutely must have these pieces. We get those pieces back in and we go to council and say, look, budget envelope is insufficient for the program you want to deliver. And they have to make a decision to increase the envelope or to tell the community, you're not getting a walking track, you're not getting your change rooms. And that's what they do, right? They're making those decisions. All we're doing is informing them. So the decisions came to deliver a building with this program. And what we do as designers is we're still trying to keep it under that envelope as best we can. So one of the main ways we're able to achieve that on this project is through what's called multi-purposing spaces. So in the functional program, we might identify that we've got a walking track, and the walking track needs to be this width and it needs to have this type of flooring. And we also say we need 700 seats for a tournament pad. Well, when we looked at those two, we said, those stands are going to be empty most of the time. That walking track is going to be empty most of the time. Can we multi-purpose these areas? And that's the greatest example of multi-purposing we have on this project is the fact that we put spectator seating on the walking track. So we've actually got some bench seating with some of those stand-up rails that you might recognize from Memorial Gardens along the walking track, so that when we do bring in a large competitive tournament, we do have 700 seats, but when the big tournament's running, we don't have the walking track. So that's multi-purposing the space. If we didn't do the multi-purposing of that space, the entire footprint of that building has to expand out to accommodate the 700 seats below and the empty walking track above. So it's one example of multi-purposing in the building, and there was a number of spaces that we were able to multi-purpose. So that's one way. And another thing that we do is called value engineering. So when we're doing these types of designs, we like to continuously challenge the design team and say, how much is this? And is there a similar product that's cheaper? Do we really need all of this cladding? Do we really need this nice feature? What's the cost of this feature? And there were a couple of features that we did eliminate to some pretty significant savings. And I won't get into all the technical details of that, but throughout this design process, we were doing value engineering, making sure we weren't overspending, making sure the things that we were putting into the building are things that we really wanted and the community said that they would really like to see, and making sure we weren't spending a lot of money on things that people weren't saying they wanted.
I think it's important that the public knows that you were looking for those savings, especially in this time when they announced that inflation was going crazy.
It came in at 9.1% today in the United States.
So I mean, the Bank of Canada's raising interest rates. Everybody's increased costs to go get groceries, increased costs to buy those groceries. Everything is increasing, and I guess the taxpayer is sitting there getting tax bills and worried that this is going to end up, and I know you won't be able to say it will or it won't, but they're sitting back looking at this saying, is this going to be another project that ends up going way over budget?
No.
Am I going to be footing the bill for something else?
So the way we've done this project is the entire design is complete. We know everything in the building, we know everything in the budget. When we go out on the street and we get the bids back, there could be some unexpected extras for unknown conditions, but we've done a tremendous amount of legwork on this one. Like the number of auger probes and test pits we've done to figure out what is underground, that's like, if we hadn't done that and we made some assumptions here, we might have gone underground and realized we're going to have a differential settlement in the middle of this ice pad. But because of the amount of groundwork we did ahead of time, we've really tried to minimize those risks. And we do understand underground risk is the biggest risk on a project. Once you've got that building out of the ground, the amount of risk you're exposed to in terms of extras just exponentially plummets.
Even the cost estimate work that we've done, right? It's been pretty detailed.
That's right. Yeah, I definitely shouldn't skip over that. So we've done cost estimating throughout the design of this building. So we started with like a Class D, which is you kind of throw your thumb in the wind and hope for the best. And then we went into a Class C, which takes the footprint and the nature of the build and gives you an estimate on that. We did a Class B, which dials it in even closer with the actual systems and major components. And the last one we did was a Class A estimate, which is pretty close to somebody bidding the work. And typically you're getting a really tight pattern of bids when you're that detailed in your estimates. And then COVID happened. And what we started seeing on big projects is instead of a tight target, they were all over the map. We're talking plus 40, minus 30. That was unnerving. So now you don't know where the costs are going to come in, right? But we've been keeping our ear to the ground, and we've talked to people in industry and people that are building buildings of this nature. And what we've been hearing in the last 3 or 4 months is that the bids are starting to come back onto the target of the estimates. So we can have some confidence in the Class A estimate we're going to do at the end of the net zero build design, that we are going to be close to that target. And prior to awarding this work, we're going to have a price for the entire construction project, and council's going to know what the cost to build this building will be, and they can award based on that.
So the estimate going in is 52 million. That's the estimate as of right now.
Yes.
And of that, 28 is federal.
26.
26 of that is
26
federal.
points, or 25.78.
Yeah.
So if it comes in on budget, like the estimate and the bids all come in, and it's the cost to the taxpayer is 26 million.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's in 2022 dollars, not 2016 dollars. It's a good savings.
So it was in 2016 that the budget set for it was at 25.
That's right.
So $1 million over on the project, which, like you said, between 2016 and 2022 is. I deal with numbers on buildings every day too, and insurance, so I understand the cost on the square footage is skyrocketed in commercial buildings. It's
That's what we're facing.
Nuts. Before COVID, we were $250, $300 a square foot on a commercial building. We're seeing them at $600 and $650 a square foot now. It's just insane.
Yeah.
So I understand that. I just, as a taxpayer, as well as all the families that have sent these questions, they're all taxpayers too, and they see all these increases too, and they are worried.
Yeah.
They are worried that this 52 million ends up at the end of the day at 75, 80 million dollars, or you know what I mean? And it's just it's a tough pill to swallow when you're that far over budget.
Yep. So if this thing comes back and the tender price is 75 million, council's going to know that before they make a decision.
Okay. So then it will be ultimately up to our next council to approve the budget for this.
That's it. Yep.
So with the council coming, the new elections coming up in the fall, I guess the new council members that are running for council will have to
Will be part of their platform. The spotlight will be on this
what it
project.
is they're going to be doing.
This will be a big part of the city's identity for a long time. Should it ever, come to fruition. So I'm excited, but cautiously optimistic.
I'm excited about it too. I think Olmshill is a great facility, and this will add to that facility. The concerns were, but speaking on the ground settling, the concerns were, this is pretty fancy for what's needed, but when you explain it in terms that the taxpayers are going to look at and say, okay, well, if you do it and it settles different and you end up cracking the building, then you're talking millions of dollars to repair.
Yeah.
So it starts to make sense, and that's what I think has been missing when this has been put out and announced this is going ahead and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So
there's a lot of armchair architects out there who look at this and they just go, I don't like it.
Oh no, I know.
And believe me, I'm one of those kind of guys who is getting my torch and pitchfork ready, and I'm like, I don't like it. But now that you've kind of broken it down, explained the nuance of it, it makes perfect sense. And me being a North Bay resident, I know my taxes go up like clockwork every year, and I want to make sure that money goes to something
The best
everyone,
bang for a buck.
yeah, the best bang for the buck that everyone can enjoy, that really does make the community better. And I would be proud to say that I'm on board with this now. I wasn't coming in here, not gonna lie, but I do appreciate the explanation. It did have to be said.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I saw the questions and I've run into them too.
Oh, yeah.
And I just haven't had a forum and able to really explain what these are.
Yeah, I know,
it's
I
hard to
know
get a
pitchfork ready.
soundbite or a bumper sticker that explains differential settlement concerns.
Yeah, no, and it's a difficult, thing to explain. Like, you just don't get the idea that this design works better than a box because there's no light shed on it. So I do appreciate you guys coming in and answering our questions, because I was ready. I'm like, let's go.
We appreciate the opportunity to be able to answer these questions. For
And
sure.
and having these rinks that are at the proper size, like you said, Palangio is an undersized rink, and having those tournaments come back benefits the city. Without those tournaments, there's a loss of revenue to the city, and it's a pretty big loss. The hotels, restaurants, you name it, it's all losing money. Bringing something back that lets us have those big tournaments back, where people will want to come back to North Bay and play on our rinks is important.
Yeah,
So
that's a key message we've heard from all kinds of user groups.
Yep.
Yeah, the ability to host tournaments.
I mean, our football games we bring in through the summer. We have 4 different teams. We all have 4 home games. So we bring in 4 teams of 40 to 50 players plus their parents. I mean, when you're dealing with the Bantam age group, they don't travel alone. They always have as many fans from the away teams as we have home fans. So, I mean, that's what's missing for the hockey, as far as in the city not being able to play on all the other rinks. So having that back will be a boost to the city economy for sure.
Yeah, you're talking about 200-300 fans coming in each weekend for Bantam.
Yeah.
Easily.
And just quickly, is there a possibility? I know this design is can this design be expanded on in the future?
Not a lot of opportunity for expansion on this site.
No. Okay.
And what we heard from the community is they don't want all of their ice pads.
I'm
in
not
one location in
thinking.
town.
I'm not thinking so much ice pads as though if the city had a portion that a concession stand or something that they could lease out. Some of these types of arenas that you go to in other cities have places where mom and dad are sitting there watching little Johnny play hockey or whatever, and they can have a beer. There's a bar. There's a little restaurant they can get a bite to eat. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
is there opportunity in this design to put that in there?
So it's not the design that excluded that. It was just the nature of the operation.
Okay.
The facilities I've been to that are able to support those types of restaurants
Yeah.
have a lot more than 2 pads.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's my understanding, like with our existing facilities, it's been very difficult for them to get concessions that can operate viably. Right? So
When
that's
it's
been
just going on with hockey games
Yeah.
and stuff like that, but I was more thinking it like a full-time restaurant, it's a new building destination, kind of go for dinner and see the kind of building, but
So what we've heard is they don't want to be in
yeah, okay,
in a community center. They'd rather just open an independent across the street.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And I think the architects have kind of said that they're not really designing buildings with those kinds of amenities anymore. Like, there's not a huge demand. Is that
Well, certainly in a building of this nature,
Yeah.
yeah. And we originally were exploring that. We wanted to get a restaurant in. That would be really good, we thought, but it was a resounding not going to work.
Okay.
No.
All right, guys. Well, I don't think. Do we have any more questions for Gord and Dave? No. It's we're at the 49-minute mark, and we got to get on to talking about our Bantam and JV games really quickly. It's 5:17 right now.
Oh yeah.
So we got to quickly get through this. So Clinton, what do you got for the Bantams this weekend? How'd you guys do, and what's new? Guys, we're gonna get back to you quickly. I believe you Gord, do you have to run right now, or?
I have to pick up my dog.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, but we appreciate you guys coming in.
Right
Yeah,
on.
no,
So,
absolutely.
thank you very
Thanks
much.
for having us,
Nice
guys.
meeting you both.
Yeah.
I appreciate the answers.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very grateful to have the forum to be able to actually have a long form discussion about why we did what we did, because
It's been missing.
it has been.
Yeah.
Yeah, that information just hasn't been present in the community. I mean, my son plays hockey now. I'm at the rinks as well, and I'm hearing the same thing you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
are.
It's important because, and this isn't a knock on our council, but it's extremely difficult for, and we've been in this boat, it's extremely difficult for the stakeholders to go to the council meetings and get their questions answered because they don't have them. They're going to say, well, we got to look and refer to our engineering and get a.
You get
Yes,
the political,
that's- but that,
the political
that
answer. I don't
is,
know.
that is the case a lot of
Yeah.
times,
It
right?
is
Like,
correct, but
like, if they're
when
getting
we go-
asked technical questions,
Yeah.
they need to ask somebody like David to give them those that background, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when we go to the council meetings, you have to make sure that they know what your question is ahead of time.
Yeah, you register.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
to let them know
So-
why you're coming. And,
So we've
yep.
been down that path and we've been there and not been able to get our questions answered, right? So we really appreciate you guys coming in and answering these
Yeah.
questions, and honestly, because there's not other avenues for us to get those questions answered. They're not all there,
So
right?
one thing I would encourage, like I've been with the city for 6 years now, and when we're doing projects like this, we do some community engagement. So we'll have a session where we present what's going on. Those are a tremendous opportunity for the community and the stakeholders to come out and talk directly to us. And we put boards up, so all the comments, we register them on the boards and we accumulate them and see how many of the same comments were made. That's an excellent way for the citizens to communicate to the city what they want. And I would encourage people with interest in these projects to get out to those. I was shocked at how few people actually come out and attend those. So if you've got some interest, come on out to those. Your voice will be heard.
It doesn't allow for shouting and anger, so I don't know if you're going to get a lot of engagement.
I mean,
I'm just kidding.
we'll probably ask you to maybe move it outside
Yeah.
if you want to do some yelling.
Yeah. Well, I think communication is kind of lacking, and it's great to have you guys come out and clear the air. It really does. Like I totally understand where you guys are coming from now.
Well, again,
It
really
makes,
great.
it makes way more sense now to me than it did coming in. Like I had all
No, they
these
didn't pay me.
questions in my had all these questions in my mind, and to have somebody explain the design, the reasoning behind the decisions, all that stuff makes more sense now than it did before. And the fact that the biggest thing to me is as a taxpayer is the budget was set in 2016 and you're not over budget with the federal grant. So although the price tag on the building is more, you're still not over the budget of what was set by council in 2016. I mean, really.
And that is unheard of. I'm going to be honest. In
Yeah.
any project,
Yes.
to keep it at the original cost that you had envisioned almost 7 years prior,
Yeah.
I'd like to see another project that pulled
And
that
especially after COVID, and I say that because everybody out there knows what we're going through after this whole 2 years of not being able to do anything, the restricted supply chains, all that stuff. So, I mean, everybody knows cost increase have gone up, but this has not. We just, I guess the council and you guys have found ways to find the money somewhere else. It seems like so, which is good.
Great.
Moving forward, there's gonna be more open houses. There's gonna be presentations, I assume, at the council meeting by the designers and the architects to update council. So there's gonna be opportunities for the public to get informed about the project. And you guys have my contact information. So if you ever have questions, shoot me an email.
Careful what you say.
That's what I do all day.
Okay. Fair enough, Gord.
Yeah.
All right, we'll let you guys off the hook.
Right on.
You're going to talk
Appreciate
some
it, guys.
football.
Thank you so much.
You can stay if you
Enjoy the
want.
rest of your day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good one, guys.
Nice meeting you both.
Hey, you can leave that. That looks good on my wall.
Thanks a lot, guys. And for everybody watching, Gord Young's communications officer. So Gord Young at City of North Bay.
I like it. Leave Gord's name out there.
At northbay.ca.
There we go.
Have a good one, guys.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Okay, switch over. I'm gonna fix this now. Sorry, guys. It'll just be a second.
I'm not editing out this in post either.
No, that's okay. Okay, guys. So the Bantams, you guys, man, I
Don't.
watched the end of that game. It hurt me.
I tell you what, it was quite an exciting game.
That was a great game. It was exciting. I still have chest pains. I can still feel my left arm.
There's a couple times the players were on the other side of the field, and I was yelling across so hard I felt like I was going to pass out. I was getting dizzy. Not out of anger till the end of the game, but that's going to be fixed tonight at our practice for my behavior. So anybody that's not at practice, I yelled at a ref at the end of the game. It was unacceptable. I apologize for my comments to the ref. I've invited the ref to my practice tonight so I can apologize to him in front of the team as well. To show the kids it doesn't matter. You can make mistakes, but it's what you do after the mistake that defines you both on and off the field. So I'm taking my humble pie tonight. I'm going to apologize to that ref and any of the other refs that show up to our practice tonight in front of the kids and do that. But other than that, I mean, I got to tell you, that defense, I told you last week, I said that defense was looking to finally get on the scoreboard, and they sure did. They got us 10 points this week. They got 2 safeties, and Damon picked off the quarterback and ran it in for 6 points.
Yeah.
So the last stat for that defense on the season was to get points, and they sure showed up big. They got us 10 points. So York ran that wing tee and double wishbone offense, and it works.
Grinding.
It's grinding, and it's drive after drive, and the defense was held strong right till the end of the game again, and then they let 2 late scores in to let York take the win on us. 24-22, I think is what the final score was.
It's etched in there now.
I was excited. I get excited on it. Anybody who's seen me on the sideline knows I get excited. I get vocal.
Coach, I know you get excited.
I was extremely excited on those points. You have no idea. I was probably happier than all those kids. I was jumping up and down and screaming and high-fiving everybody. It was a great feeling for them to get that final. And they got a special treat coming. I'm not going to say what it is online because it's the offense is going to get the treat as well, but it's a little bit different. So any parents who are watching and want to see the defensive treat show up to practice tomorrow night, that's coming.
You could probably say what it is because by the time this airs.
No.
Okay.
I'll try and get it done tonight.
All right.
But anyway, so what the defense did is they put the offense on notice. We scored first. 2 points, and I think they got the interception right after.
Yeah. It was within the
first
offense
half. hadn't scored in 2 games. They were down on themselves, and man, that lit a fire. When the defense scored, and we were telling them, look, it's a 3-phase game. And you're not performing, you're not doing your job. Wow, did that ever light a fire? And they came out there, and then they started putting on points. That York defense is tough. They make really good tackles. They fly off the edge. They're fast. They're really good at containing. And the offense finally, found their stride and let them up a couple times. So it was really good to see. It was good to see a nice 3-phase game. That kick at the end kind of hurt.
Yeah, a couple punts at the end that went over our punter's head and left the defense in our side pretty deep. But yeah, that offense that York runs, like I said, it just grind on the defense, and it just wore them down. I've got no complaints. They contained well, they tackled well, everything I wanted them to do. We scouted York really well. We had a game plan in place, and it worked. They just got tired at the end. It was a grinding
perpetual
game.
attack.
It's a football game, 60 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And I saw how excited you got at the end of the game with that referee.
Yeah.
I've been there. I've been in those shoes.
Probably one of my low points.
I got to tell you this. One play doesn't define a football game.
I agree.
Right? Each individual series defines football games, right? Whether you're down by 20, 30, 40, 50, I'm trying to instill this in the younger kids, is that the next series you go out, forget what happened last series, start over.
Yeah. And
then start over again. And start over again. Right? You hear these coaches saying all the time, like, the score, look up there, that doesn't mean anything. It's 0-0. We're starting fresh, right? You hear it all the time. But each series, okay, what was the mistake last time? Then when you go from one game to the next game, okay, you got to visualize what were the mistakes that I made and how can I prevent them and get better for the next game, right? And that's why we practice, because each week that's what we're doing. We're trying to eliminate those mistakes, right? It's really difficult sometimes to get through, especially at the 15 to 16-year-old level. And you've coached it. I've coached it. This isn't my first rodeo. It's third time's a charm, I guess. Didn't work out that way, but the senior varsity, you end up with the kids that have already lived it, and they're like, okay, they went through the bullheadedness and said the coaches actually know what they're talking about, and now we got to listen to them, right? And Bantam, they don't know any better. They're going to listen to you guys, right? You're going to get a couple of them that don't, but for the mass, you're going to get them listening, right? So if you can get them to just restart every drive like it's a new game, get your heads down, focus, right? Get that negative energy out of whatever happened last drive. The punt went over my head. I don't care. Okay? Pretend it never happened. Next.
Yeah.
Right?
When I go out there and talk to the offense, I always tell them I don't care what happened. I don't even care what the referee did. I don't care what the penalty was. I don't care if you muffed a punt or if you threw an interception. Reset, refocus, and let's go out there and do our job, do it well, and just trust your teammates. And
you know what? Let me say this. For all you kids watching, I'm going to tell you guys something that you probably already know. The nickname for professional football, especially the NFL, is called the Next Man Up League, right? Because you're expendable. Until you get to the NFL, it's the Next Play League. Whether it's Bantam, JV, SV, CIS, college, NCAA, everything before you get a paycheck is the Next Play Up League. Forget about it. You're not expendable. We can't find 50 new kids. We can't find 40 new kids. The university can't. They don't have time to find 100 new kids. Right? The NFL can just cut a new guy a check and say, okay, you're done. Next guy. Next man up league. Everything before the pros is next play league. Right? So when you guys hear that on your Sports Center or NFL Network, next man up, that's what they're in reference to. So next play league is everything until you get a paycheck. Remember that. Right? The JV team, we got stomped over. And a lot of things I learned after the game. One being, we're not in the playoffs.
Yeah, that was a late email yesterday.
It didn't hurt. But whether or not we won that game, they weren't going to give us a playoff.
It's a bad way to end a season.
And they knew it before last weekend. Well, because Woodstock dropped out in May.
Yeah, but the error in the keying in of the one game is what changed your placing because you were not in last place.
Because they gave Peel a win for not playing. Otherwise, we would have been in first. So they got a 6-0 win over Woodstock, or it looks like a 36-0 win.
Yeah, because they played Woodstock. Technically, but Woodstock dropped out.
Woodstock forfeit.
You guys didn't get Woodstock on your schedule,
or
so
Peel.
You didn't get any forfeits.
Or Peel.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the reason was an error in the keying in, and that flip-flopped the two. However, that being said, this is an easy fix as far as I'm concerned. This is people in Southern Ontario running, not football players. Give the first place team a bye and you're still on schedule. Then every team, as promised, ends up with a playoff game.
Well, the Football Ontario goes ahead and has a tournament. They fail to tell anybody that they're having a tournament with our club, and determine that we're going to have playoffs a week early and we lose our bye week. The under-16 conference across the OSFL lose a bye week, which is important, and I want Football Ontario to know this because that's your rest and recovery week before you go into the playoffs, right? So no rest and recovery week. Please come play in our tournament for safety because at the beginning of the season we got 2 games cut due to safety. Now we have a tournament going on in season playoffs at that, and our league has zero integrity to contact Football Ontario and tell them, hey, we have a league going on right now. Do you respect us or not? We're the only summer football league in Ontario. Do you respect us enough or not? Because if they did, they would not be having a tournament in season. And that drives me crazy. Because that way, the bye week could have said, North Bay and Peel, you really don't have a win. It was given to you because Woodstock dropped out. Same with everybody else.
See who gets the last spot.
You guys play each other for that spot.
Yeah.
Even if it's
playoff berth.
Yeah. Because that's the way it should come down.
It's a wild card game.
It's a wild card game, and it should be. Because they didn't win anything either. They're no different than York with our SV team saying, here's your win, right? Yeah. So not only that, not being prepared, like going into the game knowing that we have another week to go, right? If I knew that was the last week, there's a lot of things a coach would do differently at that moment. And that's our last game of the season.
Players play different when they think it's their last game.
Yeah, and preparation.
They shouldn't, but they do.
They shouldn't, but they do. But preparation for the game would have changed. So many things would have changed leading up to that game and at that game. At that game, if I knew we had no shot in hell of getting into the playoffs, there would have been everybody playing almost every position, whatever they want. I would have had every lineman have their opportunity to run the ball because I told them they would have, right? Nolan got to run the ball this year. So many things would have changed in that game, and I feel terrible, so I'm going to apologize to the JV team. That's my humble pie. And I'm actually willing to keep going and train them throughout the rest of the summer so long as we have field times. And I invested a ton of my own money into this stuff, so hopefully you guys show up and run sleighs, push sleighs, do parachutes, everything else. So I apologize for not finishing the season the way we thought we were, and it didn't work out. It did not work out. This really threw a fork in the spoke, so to say. Very frustrating. But it helped our SVs a little bit. I'm sending 5 players up to senior varsity. Peter Ferracci, Riley O'Byrne, Jacob Dubois, Justin Marietti, and Luke and Scarlett. They're all going up to SV. 3 of them can dress. They can help the SV team make sure that they got 25 players dressed every week and contribute somehow. So Perfect. It's good for the SV team. They're going to be playing this weekend. I didn't get much information of their scores. I know our score was 30-something to 6. Don't really want to talk about the whole thing. The kids were just dead. The effort, I hope they go back to high school, because I know you would have, some of your players that were there, you'd have been very animated.
I don't know that I could have been any more animated than I was.
No.
So, but you know what? Hey, shout out to Peter Ferracci playing defense this weekend. Scored our first defensive touchdown. He got player of the week.
Nice.
Great game. A lot of the guys had a great game, and there's some of those kids on the team. I got Riley O'Byrne on our team, and one of those kids that's just so coachable. He's so positive. Sometimes things happen where people just, hey, I'm going to be positive and I'm going to continue to learn, and that's the direction I'm taking, and I don't care who's in my way, whether you're on my team or not. I'm going to be Mr. Positive and just go that route. He's one of those kids, and
good attitude will get you a long way.
Man,
not only in just life, but with your coaches and the people around you. If you're negative all the time, it's hard to go, well, I want to put Mr. Negativity beside this other player because I don't want it to be toxic or cancer.
Never breeds success.
Yeah, negativity is not a good thing. Carry yourself
waste
well.
Of energy.
It is.
Hey, and you know what? It's hard to explain because I've been away from the Bulldogs for a little bit due to the pandemic, and I was taking some time off before. But like I explained to some of these kids, I don't know how to get it in your head. I've done everything you want to do with football. You know what I mean? I played for Team Ontario. I played for Team Canada. I did all that stuff. I'm trying to relate to you what I did in order to get there. And you don't want to listen. You get a couple of those, especially in the JV level.
We got them at Bantam as well.
They always know everything.
It's like, what do you want to do with football? How often do we ask the kids, like, do you want to go to the next level? Like, what do you want to do? In Bantam, I want to go play at West Ferris, or I want to go play at Scholar, or I want to go play here, right? You get that out of the kids. And some of them, it's passed down vicariously, with their parents. I played at Scholar, and I was a Bear, and you're going to play at Scholar, and you were a Bear, right? Which is awesome. Same thing happened to me, right? But when they get there and they're like, oh, I got to start shooting for the stars here. Like, what do I want to do with this? I'm actually really enjoying it. Do I want to play CIS? Do I want to try out for this team? Do I want to try out for that team? Do I want to go pro? Like, some kids take it very seriously. You got Ryan Hunter. He took it seriously as soon as he was in youth. It was serious right from the get-go, right? So I don't have a whole lot of info. Do you guys have the senior varsity score from the weekend?
I don't, but I do have that they have a upcoming game.
Yeah, Huronia at home this weekend.
Yeah, this weekend. That's going to be a barn burner.
We got a doubleheader.
Senior varsity and men's both play this weekend.
Yep.
Bantam's off this weekend.
Yes.
We don't know who we play next weekend yet.
Nope.
Because
how do you book a bus?
there's two teams playing on the weekend coming up that'll let us know who we're playing. It could be Oakville, it could be Sarnia, it could be Niagara. It's going to be somebody from the South Division.
Hope it's Oakville. Save on some buses this year.
Yeah, I don't want it to be Sarnia. That's a 6-hour bus ride.
Yeah.
You guys will have fun doing that.
Niagara's got to be up there too.
Yeah, Niagara will be up there.
Yeah,
And
Niagara's a long way.
yeah, that's a long bus trip, but yeah.
I'd rather do the.
Well, you're already
Niagara
on the
trip than
back foot
Sarnia.
with that. Well, that's a long trip for.
Yeah, we'll
just
know
anyone.
after this weekend. Forest City and Sarnia are the two playing, I think, and
Okay.
Sarnia hasn't won, or they've only won a couple games. So Forest City beats them, then we'll be playing, I think, Oakville or something like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
But
The Sturgeons.
hard to get film and get ready for a team you don't even know you're playing yet.
Yeah.
So, but again, that defense, whatever they put in front of us, that defense is going to do well. The offense, like I said it last week on the podcast, if the offense starts clicking again with the defense playing the way they are, any team we match up against is in for they've got their work cut out for them.
Yeah.
Regardless of who it is we play next weekend. It's not going to be a cakewalk. I don't care if it's the first place team, the second, doesn't matter who it is.
Playoff football is going to be
If
tough.
you've got to play the North Bay Bulldogs, you better be ready for us, because if you take us lightly, you're going to go home.
You're gonna learn what football is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
War of attrition.
Yeah, those last 3 games were the top 3 games. Two out of the 3 teams we played in the last 3 weeks are moving up to AAA. They didn't lose a game. In fact, one team didn't even have a point scored on them all season. They're moving to AAA. So those are the 2 teams that are gone. Everybody else has at least lost 1 game.
Yeah.
And only one other team, which is the York Lions, we played against, and they beat us by 2 points, and that game could have gone either way.
Oh, that was a
So
teeter-totter game.
you start playing with those
Not bad.
numbers.
It was close. That York game, that could have went anyway.
Oh yeah.
We left points on the field.
Yeah.
We missed a couple of key plays. There's no one play that defines the whole game.
No, there isn't.
But if we come out and they execute,
We clean up a little bit the offense and a few things on the defense. I'm going to be working this week. Any team that has to play us, I'd be worried. And I say that honestly. I'm saying it. And if Philip Fortin is watching this, he's going to be so mad at me when I say this. This team has probably the best defense I've ever coached at this level and at the high school level, and we have two or three really good athletes that play the key positions on defense. Free safety, and yes, Philip, the MAC linebacker. I got a couple kids that can play that MAC linebacker spot better than anybody I've coached at that spot. Only because they're faster than you, Philip. I know if he hears it, he's going to be so mad. But
and subscribe.
It's crazy how these kids are flying to the ball and making plays on defense.
Hey,
And I can
I
only
can't
speak
wait to
about
chat
defense.
with you later, because you have just traveled the coaching spectrum from when a season starts to when
I
playoffs
know.
start.
Absolutely.
I can't.
The defense was solid at the beginning of the season, but they're nowhere near where they are now. This defense is just
punishing. They're just incredible.
They make you earn every single yard, and if you put points on them, you earned it. You got battered and bruised the whole way there. You don't get quick shots on us. You can't score on us quickly. You have to earn it, and I can't ask for anything more out of a defense. Because if you make an offense have to go 70 yards down the field playing against this defense, you're going to make a mistake. We're going to make you make a mistake.
Hey, you know what? Speaking of that, I got to give a shout out to my entire offensive line. And there's not a name on our team I forget. There's not a name on our team that I don't know. I got everything down pat. So I'm going to say Nolan Trainer, Caleb Boone, Caleb Whelan, Paul, Andrew, you guys, Jesse, Graydon, everybody on our offensive line, okay? Jacob Dubois played there a little bit. You guys have done an awesome job, and beyond awesome. You're a pleasure to coach. You're probably the most coachable area on our entire team. There was no complaining at all. And not one of you, other than Paul, I believe, has played offensive line. Everybody came from the D-line. And
Nolan played a little bit of offensive line for us last year at college.
He started at O-tackle.
Yeah,
and
a little bit.
If his parents are watching, make sure he works at offensive tackle. Don't let anybody change his position. He's got the footwork. He's got the anchor. He's got the mentality.
I see him working with the line guy even outside of your drills sometimes at practice.
Oh, definitely. And write his name down, because it's been a long time since I've seen players that have the potential to go pro. But his footwork is there. A couple little things to work on. And I'm not saying that to give anybody a pat on the back, but him switching from D-line to offensive line, I can't tell you how natural that is for him. Another one, I've said his name a couple times on the show, Riley O'Byrne. He's always been a running back. He goes to middle linebacker and is 100% natural. 100%. First foot forward, delivers the blows, doesn't matter who's in that hole, they're not getting in it. And I changed a lot of players around this year because I want to play linebacker. Oh, I played linebacker before. Oh, I want to play corner. I want to play safety. I want to play D-line. I want to play O-line. A lot of players have been moved. They are not where they started out. And for the better. And I hope they have found their positions and where they want to be. But definitely Nolan has he's gotten there. It's awesome.
They're always short line, O-line, and at Scholar. I don't imagine the senior coaches will change him from wanting to be there.
I'm not 100% sure who I have again next year and who I don't have next year, but whoever I send to Jason is going to be more than prepared. So he's going to love it.
I'm excited next year too. The defensive line, the two guys, Gage and Cole, the two anchors on the defensive line in the middle are both grade 7. Like Cole's 6'4", 200 pounds. He plays both A-gaps. Just does it. Gage is an animal. I mean, that guy's getting in the backfield, making sacks and tackles for losses, 3-4 a game. Like,
man.
Just nonstop.
He's scary. He gets in there quick.
Yeah. And then Parker, Weller, and Wes on the two ends. Wes is probably 150 pounds soaking wet. He's just a little wee guy, but he
like a Tasmanian devil. He's ferocious.
Makes all kinds of tackles back there too. Him and Parker shut down that end, so I'm super excited. That's what I say in the defense. I always look for a triangle. If I can find the two ends and a middle linebacker, I can build around that.
Yeah.
Those three guys are probably the most important parts of the defense, as far as I'm concerned. What I like to run. So
offensively, we were gifted with mini Debs or
Matthew
80-yard plus touchdown run. That guy just
plays everything you ask him to play. Smart. Very, very, very
incredibly
smart.
football intelligent. And our two quarterbacks, man, you couldn't ask for two more gifted out. They're a little different. You know, Dane is a grounded runner, and he's quick. He's got to control the offense, and Peyton has poise in the pocket, and that kid can drop a dime. Oh my God!
It'll be Dane and Peyton playing against each other. Peyton's going to Scholar. Dane's going to
in the main event.
So in the championship
after summer
for NDA, it'll be Dane and Peyton.
Yeah, and they'll be superstars.
Sunday.
Yeah, but we have Owen Landry, who's 17. We plug him in wherever, he just goes, "Yes, coach," and he just does it. And you don't have to yell.
Grade 7 as well.
Grade 7, yeah. And just we're gifted.
It'd be nice to have the returning guys back next year because we never had that from last year, right? Because of COVID for the last couple of years, you didn't have the returning players, so nobody knew what to expect. When you have a base of 15 kids that are still there from the year before, they come in and they get the new kids all going. And
that's the issue we're having right now at the JV and SV level, right?
Yeah.
You're at the level where we always have those numbers. Yeah. Right? Why don't we have those numbers at JV and SV right now? Why do I only have 34, 35 players at a game?
They start working. Well, start getting their license, all that stuff. It all starts to play into it.
Kind of, but it also has to do with, I learned how to do this while I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Right? So it'll come back. You just got to keep them around. Yep.
Gotta get the practice.
Understandable. Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Oh yeah,
it's
I got 10
quarter
minutes
two.
to get to practice.
We're gonna run to practice.
I gotta go get some humble pie.
You gotta get your humble pie. Okay,
I'm not missing that. I'm following him.
yeah, I gotta get there too. So, anyways, guys, thanks for coming on. Thanks to Gord and Dave with the city. Really knowledgeable. I hope we answered a lot of questions for everybody, and that 2025 can't come soon enough. So that's when we'll first get to use something like that, so long as the next council doesn't make any decisions that shorten up or lengthen
or kibosh or
also we're going to have I'm going to get some information from Jason and possibly Krista. I know she gets some information for the news stuff every week, and have hopefully a special guest next week, man. So hopefully you can come back, or Mark or Jason, somebody come back and give me some information from your games.
Right.
I know you're going to be here. You're going to be here.
I do. I give Krista information on the games every day after the game. I only do defense because I don't speak about the offense. I don't run that offense. I don't know what they're missing or getting, and so.
Yeah.
But
it's all good.
So it's all on Krista.
yeah, it's all on Krista.
No, Krista didn't do anything wrong. I'm looking for SV and men's stuff. That's Mark and Jason.
Oh, okay.
So anyways, we're going to wrap this up. We're at the hour 20 mark. So thanks a lot, guys, and enjoy the show. Leave your comments, like, and what's the other thing?
Subscribe.
Subscribe. We're going to have a whole new podcast set up in a couple weeks. It's going to look totally different. The visuals, everything, sound, everything's going to be totally different. We got a lot of money that's being poured into this to make it look really cool for you guys. So, it'll also allow us to bring on more guests and do some pretty unique things. I can't wait for you guys to see. These guys don't even know, but we're going to do some really unique stuff. Thank you for Thomas at Buzzmasters for helping me out with some of that stuff. All right? All right,
Sounds
guys.
good.
Let's get to practice.
All right, see you at the field.